Hey guys, welcome back to Mystifying Miracles. Another amazing story for you today about a woman that ended up having a traumatic brain injury. It was 6:45 p.m. during rush hour traffic when a woman named Patti Foster, her life would forever be changed. She was in a car, a red Tahoe to be exact, with some other women. They were on their way to a Bible study. And Patti, she was seated behind the driver in the back seat. And there was another woman. She was a young lady. Her name was Heather. She was in the passenger seat. She had just graduated high school, and she was just chatting with the women about her senior trip to New York as she had just gotten back. So she was just talking to them about all the fun things she saw and did. And so they were having a good time on their way. The red Tahoe came to a stop at an intersection. So Patti decides to unbuckle her seatbelt just for a quick moment because she wanted to turn around in the back seat and check on some flowers that she had bought. She had bought them earlier that day and she was going to give them to the women at the Bible study. So she was just checking to make sure they didn't tump or spill, that kind of thing. But remember, she unbuckled the seatbelt, and that's when it happened. A horrific and unexpected bam right into the back of the Tahoe. The impact happened with no warning, though none of the women saw it coming. And it happened to be a big rig. The big rig was pulling a trailer behind it full of cars, and it slammed in the back of their vehicle going 70 miles per hour. Patti flew through the air, and it is said that she was ejected out the back, but the opposite side from what she was sitting on. And it was later after the fact that an eyewitness to that accident actually had a conversation with Patti. And she says, I'm going to read a quote, "When your body flew out of the vehicle, it was as if the hand of God had come down to suspend you in the air right above the very SUV that you had been thrown out of." End quote. That same eyewitness says she has memory of that red Tahoe just spinning in place, and Patti's body is suspended in the air right above it. She says that once the Tahoe finished spinning in place, she saw Patti's body fly over and hit the ground on the other side of the highway. Now, there was another eyewitness to the accident, and she was a registered nurse, and she had just gotten off her shift for the day, and she was on her way home in that rush hour traffic. And she claims that Patti's body that was above the SUV looked just like a piece of laundry, just kind of blowing in the wind up above the SUV. Well, as vehicles were flying by and continued to do so, a person in a truck saw the accident as well and saw where Patti had landed, that they knew that she was going to get hit and run over several times by all these vehicles that probably didn't see her. So the truck actually parked itself in a way right in front of Patti's body to block traffic so that no other vehicle would accidentally hit her. Patti was care flighted to the nearest hospital.
She saw something fly out of the Tahoe, but she thought it was just a piece of laundry.
That piece of laundry was Patti Foster. On June 18, 2002, she and 3 friends were on their way to a Bible study. Patti's SUV was rear-ended by an 18-wheeler traveling 70 miles per hour. 3 of the passengers were injured, and sadly, 1 lost her life. As Patti's body lay mangled in the middle of the road, bystanders began to pray.
People that didn't know each other, they began to just join hands automatically. They began to pray with each other.
Now, for the following weeks after the accident, Patti later on heard after the fact from, friends, family, doctors, nurses that took care of her, that she had been in a coma for 6 weeks. A lot of the medical staff tried to warn and just get the family and friends ready what to expect, what not to expect, all that kind of stuff. They said that Patti most likely would not live, but if she did, she'd be a vegetable. They said she'd never walk. She'd never talk. She wouldn't be able to use the right arm or the right eyeball. That's, minor compared to the other things. But they said that even her personality would never be the same again. And this is because, obviously, she had what is called a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. Now, during this recovery, Patti was at the Baylor Institute for Rehabilitation in downtown Dallas. They put her in room 307 of the Gwen Goddard ward. Now, this is the ward where the worst TBI patients were kept. So they needed 24/7 nursing care, and it was very critical. Patti says that when she awoke, she couldn't make connections with her own thoughts and her own emotions. So you got to imagine this, like she didn't know who she was, what's an emotion, what am I feeling? There's so many things that go into it and it's hard to explain, but can you imagine waking up and not knowing, what an emotion is? It's just crazy. One of the good things during this time, Patti says she had an amazing nurse that she considered a gift from God. And Patti called her Mama Joan. Over time, Patti actually began to connect with Mama Joan, and this is something doctors said would never happen. After many weeks passed, Patti began to learn nonverbal communication. So this was great because being able to communicate somehow in some way is better than nothing, right? So another thing due to the trauma that medical staff said she would never do. So she began to learn to read people's body language, their facial expressions, their eyes. So she started learning all that. She said that she even had to relearn touch. That was something she didn't get or understand. So can you imagine what that must have been like as well? Somebody's coming in to give you a hug, puts a hand on your shoulder, anything, and you have no idea what that is, why that is, and everything, learning every detail back again. Patti says she was much like a toddler. She didn't know anything. She didn't know ABCs. That was something she had to learn. And remember it, again, it's like learning it for the first time. It's not like she had in the back of her mind, oh yeah, I used to know my ABCs. No, she didn't know what ABCs were. And she had to learn how to go through the whole thing. She did slowly but surely learn to walk again. Another thing they said she'd never do. Patti says amongst all this stressful, this just a stressful time and learning all these things over again, there is one thing she never had to relearn. Just one thing. Can you guess what that is? She said it was Jesus. She never lost the memory of that, of who he was or his love. Patti says that even at one point, she was allowed to go to heaven to see it. And she says it was breathtaking. It was beautiful. She described in this story I read that there were colors, like many blues that she had never seen and were just, beautiful. She says she never saw with her eyes Jesus, but she could feel his presence next to her the entire time. Patti just kept making miraculous progress as time went on. But she says there were definitely times of darkness. Because of the stress and, having to learn everything again. And then just the thought, she said that, she learned that she would never be the same. Like who she was. And she had to learn to cope with that. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, she had to learn to cope with what was her new life. And she says the way she coped, she gave it to God. And that, of course, I know I've said before, that's a hard thing to do in our society where we're programmed to take care of ourselves. We're the only ones going to do it, right? So it is a hard thing to do, but she was able to do it, to give it to God for comfort and to keep on. And she referenced a verse that she would think about a lot during that time, and it was Deuteronomy 31:6. Fast forward to today, and Patti is living again. She walks, she talks, she does so many things that they said she would never do again. And she now goes around the world giving her testimony and just her story of survival and what she went through and how she did it. And to this day, she says God just brings her encouragement by using other people, whether it's a note, a letter, just telling her outright, or perhaps somebody walking by with a smile. She believes that it's the little things, those small things, and they can make the biggest impact. I have to agree with that, because when I'm having an awful day, as we all do, man, all it takes is a text from a friend or an email or sometimes it is somebody I do not know on the street, somebody holding the door open, smiling for me, and it changes everything. The rest of my day is no longer what it was. So I do agree with that it is those small things that are just awesome. Now, Patti Foster, she has a long history in the radio business. That was, what she went to school for, and she was, did way before her accident. She was actually the morning host at WFRN in Elkhart, Indiana. Well, that long career in radio led to more opportunities through the years. And so that was a great thing, because now she does full-time speaking nationally and around the world, and, giving her testimony and just encouraging other people. She talks to several groups, several churches, corporations, big and small. She does it all. Patti says she has that passion to motivate and just keep on encouraging other people. So she really enjoys her time doing that. She does have a website. I'll put it in the description if anybody's interested, but it's pattifoster.com. I think she has a few books available and whatnot. I haven't had the pleasure or the time yet to research those and read those or to see what all she has, but that is there for those that are interested. So let me know, guys, what you thought of the story, any opinions you have or encouragement you have for anybody else watching this or commenting. I appreciate you guys. I love you. I thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'm going to see you for the next one.